Well, hello and welcome to episode 363 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. Brought to you by our TSP patron community. We couldn't make the show each week without your support. And coming up this week on the podcast, well, Saints did exactly what was required at Hillsborough, a 3-1 win over already relegated Sheffield Wednesday. 3 more points on the board and a performance that felt professional, perhaps, rather than spectacular. And all 3 goals coming from defenders, which I'm sure we'll discuss later. So in a 3-game week, 7 points out of a possible 9, 9 goals for and just 2 against, and 4 points now off those playoff places. And the bigger picture matters here. Every playoff rival won across the weekend, but that's now 9 unbeaten in all competitions and 6 wins from the last 8 in the league. Momentum is building, even if the performances still raise a few questions. So good evening. My name is Neil Crespin, in again for Martin, and joining me this week are our expert panel, seasoned observers who know that form, context and expectation rarely travel in the same direction at this football club. Steve Grant is the owner of Saints Web. Glenn Delacour is writer of the blog League One -10. And Alfie House is the senior Southampton reporter at the Daily Echo. So as I mentioned there, a solid win, but not quite the goal fest or the walkover that many predicted. I described it earlier as sort of professional rather than spectacular. Is that a fair comment, Alfie? Come to you. 3 points, that's what it was all about. Are we kind of finally learning to sort of win ugly?
Yeah, I think to be fair, they've been winning ugly on a couple of occasions in the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks under Tonda. But you're spot on. It's not been swashbuckling, particularly this weekend by any means. You mentioned the fact that all 3 of the goals are scored by defenders. All 3 of the goals actually come from set pieces as well. So you got that early scrappy James Bree opener from a second phase. Leo sends a ball in. James Bree's 3rd goal of the month, by the way. And what a February for him. I don't think many people predicted that sort of impact. And then another Ryan Manning free kick right before half time. And it looked as comfortable as it could have been, really. But we did let Wednesday back into the game with about half an hour left, failing to clear a set piece of their own. And obviously, Jerry Yates scored his first goal for the club, which does tend to happen against us. And then Harwood-Bellis did hook in a sort of a bobbling corner to seal it a little bit later on. But it should have been more comfortable. Carl Larin had 2 big chances in the first half, hit the keeper with 1, put 1 wide. And I thought that Leo Senza probably should have scored as well. So they were dominant for me, but no more than expected. Sheffield Wednesday, the situation they're in, -7 points, winless in 30 games for them. 30 games without a win. Just brutal, brutal. But pleasing for Tonda, I guess, the fact that the goals come from the defenders in one way. 6 for Ryan Manning this season, 5 for James Bree and Harwood-Bellis. And they're good contributions and they're needed because we don't have an out-and-out goal scorer available every single week at the moment. We're getting goals from different areas of the pitch, yes, but Ross Stewart didn't play the match due to muscle tightness, the club say. So Tonda Eckert says that he was out with muscle tightness, but that he'll be back against Fulham. And he assured us that there was nothing to worry about, but obviously people will worry because it's Ross Stewart. And there was a couple of other players as well. Kasper Yander missed out for illness entirely, and he left Flynn Downs on the bench to avoid a suspension. Which worked out well in the end. Cam Brad came in. But ultimately, Saints got through it. I thought Finn Azaz did well creatively. Peretz made a good save late on, but the game was already won. It was a 7s across the board, I felt, for most players. Nobody was particularly spectacular, but everybody did the job required of them. A potential banana skin, definitely should have won. They did win.
Yeah, and I think on the podcast last week, there was a lot of talk about the danger of a sort of Sheffield Wednesday relegation bounce, if there is such a thing. I may just have made that up, I don't know, but you kind of talked about that on the podcast. But Steve, you were there at the game, and no real sign of that. They didn't play too badly at times, but they were there for the taking, right?
Yeah, I mean, Wednesday were, I think, what we expected them to be. They were energetic, kind of trying to sort of put the effort in, because they knew that if they, ultimately, aside with their resources and the squad makeup, if they don't put the effort in, then you're just going to get absolutely trounced by a team that's just far better at the moment. But yeah, I mean, the effort was never waning from them. But yeah, obviously the quality was lacking, and that was the difference, really, that we were able to take chances when they came our way. and even had the luxury of passing up the opportunity on probably 5 or 6 occasions. I mean, a team that's, ultimately, if we'd gone into the game with a sort of mindset of, right, we do absolutely need to boost our goal difference significantly here, then I think there's a possibility that we'd have put a much sort of better score on the board, if you like. But they were able to manage the game in that second half for the most part. Second half was poor, I thought, in terms of energy and tempo from us. But other than a little 5-minute spell either side of their goal, we were able to kind of keep Sheffield Wednesday at arm's length. It was a little bit like the sort of Scooby-Doo, Scrappy-Doo thing. Scrappy-Doo's kind of trying to throw fists and haymakers, but we've kind of got the arm out, and he could only reach as far as our elbow. So yeah, it was kind of fine for the most part. And I mean, the only disappointment really was probably Larin not getting on the score sheet again. That would have been useful, I think. And I mean, other than that, I think most, as Alfie said, most players were kind of a 7 out of 10 performance. Nobody was terrible, nobody was outstanding. It was job done. Move on to the next, hopefully without any sort of fitness or injury worries, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. We're obviously going to be previewing the Fulham game in a week's time on Sunday. But so the goals are coming. The organisation seems to be coming on the pitch, and to a certain extent, a degree of control. Is our defence quietly becoming sort of the foundation for this run, Glenn? You must be delighted that we're playing a back four now, of course. But did you expect them to be goal scorers as well as everything else they're bringing to the game?
Well, not really. It's a bonus, but we all know how important set pieces are. And at the end of the day, they're all, Ryan Manning's got his free kick, and the others are all big lads, and so they should be sort of magnetic in the opposition penalty box, and that's a decent way of describing certainly James Bree at the moment. When the ball drops, it always seems to be to him. Harwood-Bellis is usually a threat in the air. He scored a few goals with his head this season, and he's found himself right where the ball's dropped. I'd be interested to know how much work they do on opposition, like goalkeepers, for example, because the Sheffield Wednesday goalie was very flappy. And he didn't.
Well, it's two games in a row we played ropey keepers, isn't it?
Yeah, he didn't cover himself in glory with the first or the third goal from a point of view of coming into the air to collect the ball. And I thought on the second goal, it's on the free kick, he's laughably bad because he's obviously put all his eggs in the box in the basket of thinking that's going to be a cross. The wall doesn't look in the right place, and it's just. I mean, it's a good free kick. Any free kick that goes in is a good free kick, but it just looks so easy.
I think the lad's a sort of third, fourth choice, isn't he? I think he's been sort of brought in on emergency.
Yeah, they brought him on an emergency loan from someone. But but back to the point about us and our attack and free kicks and corners and whatnot. We do seem to be, we're getting a lot of benefit from those. And as Alfie said at the start, it's needed because the only disappointment from yesterday is that we didn't score a goal from open play. Carl Larin could have had a couple. The one he put wide, I thought, was particularly not a great finish. He got a little bump off the defender, but you expect him to be able to, sort of like hold that off and still get the shot on target. But there you go.
The rest of his game looked quite good, I thought. He looked sort of that strong hold-up player that you guys were talking about on the podcast the week before. Yeah,
he is what he is. It's exactly what it says on the tin. He gives you exactly that. The negative about him is that we know he's not the most clinical goal scorer, and I think everything is being shown in his performances at the moment. You hope he's got a little bit more in the locker as he gets up to speed, playing more games. I think he is going to play quite a few more minutes than initially thought, because I'm not buying the. I'm in the deeply cynical Ross Stewart's tightness. I'm not sure about that one. I think that could be that one could have an interesting
Well, let's
An
go to
interesting conclusion.
Go to Alfie on that, because I think, Alfie, you were saying earlier that the manager has said that he should be fit for the Fulham game, right?
Yeah. Well, his exact quote was, "He'll be back in training next week, and I'm very sure they'll be involved in the Fulham game." He said that, "I understand the worries, but it's purely precaution because we know how important he is, and there is nothing to worry about." So, yeah, for taking him at his word, there's nothing to worry about.
I mean, in fairness, we have kind of said all like the last 2 or 3 episodes that if you want to rest players, then the Sheffield Wednesday game is the game to rest them from.
Yeah.
So if he has just been rested for that reason, then fine. But I think the sort of cynicism among the fan base is well placed for a reason. The club does not have a good record, especially with this particular player. We know that Stewart obviously has had his injury concerns throughout his time with us and before. And what was originally might be a couple of weeks thing back in October turned out to be 4 months. So yeah, it's I think people will always fear the worst before they're told, before the evidence of their eyes tells them otherwise.
Yeah.
And something Steve said before we came on air, why did he come on the pitch for 15 minutes when we were 5-0 up against QPR? What was the point of that? If they were going to rest him for the Sheffield Wednesday game, which as Steve also said, would have been the right game to rest him for. They could have rested him for QPR. No need to bring him on. We were 5-0 up. Rested him for Sheffield Wednesday. Doesn't have to play next week because it's the FA Cup. So he could have had sort of like a week and a half, 2 weeks of just keeping himself ticking over in the gym or whatever, and saving himself for the more important games to come. But yeah, we just got to hope that the tightness is just that and nothing more.
Yeah, and also, Glenn, what you just said there on the QPR game, that's not us saying that in hindsight. We did say that on the podcast on Thursday night. So, that's not a rose-tinted view of things. But I guess the counter-argument would be that you want to keep a player in rhythm and in momentum, don't you? And he's clearly a rhythm player. So I guess that would be the argument to give him 15-20 there, and it shouldn't be too high risk. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
But a game a week, I think, makes more sense. There's no when you've been playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, there's no point in kind of front loading that and putting it all. Especially when that the Tuesday game, you're only giving him 15-20 minutes when you're 5-0 up. That was absolutely baffling. And when you then follow that up by leaving him out under potentially suspicious circumstances where there's reports that he's got an injury and this, that, and the other. You leave yourselves open as a sort of hostage to fortune there, don't you, a little bit?
Yeah. Before we move away from the game, let's go back to I can't remember how many minutes it was, but when Sheffield Wednesday got one back, so it went to 2-1, and I guess a part of me, I was annoyed with myself for thinking it, but I sort of thought, oh no, here we go. And of course, earlier in the season, I think heads may well have dropped. Do you think that sort of, to use one of your collective favourite terms, scar tissue? Do you think that's gone from these players now? Do you think we sort of saw something new in the game on Saturday?
Well, I don't think that you can make any massive assertions based on this game, to be honest. I mean, I didn't feel in threat at any point. Obviously, it was frustrating they got back into the game. It got the stadium right behind the team, and it became a contest again. But they didn't really manage any chances. I think Chimato Low maybe had a pot shot from range. There maybe one wide from the edge of the area within about 5-10 minutes of the goal. But other than that, it was coasting again. It wasn't like Saints collapsed. But at the same time, they are such a poor team that I don't think you can make any big sort of page-turning statements about it. I mean, but you can look at the last 8 games and say that character has obviously developed. You look at the QPR game, winning 5-0 there. So I'm not the whole scar tissue thing. I think that they have turned a corner. But the real tests are yet to come now. So now we've got in the next couple of weeks. All right, we've got West Brom, who are obviously a basket case, but Coventry, Wrexham, Ipswich. Those are the games where we'll be able to answer that question. We'll be able to see what they're all about.
And we didn't pick up any errant yellow cards that have caused us any problems. I know you guys were talking about on the last pod about Flynn Downs for sure. And was it Harwood-Bellis who didn't want to get another yellow?
James
Yeah,
Bree
all
and
good.
Flynn on 9.
Yeah,
Harwood-Bellis
all
on
good
8.
on suspension front, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was a big call from him to leave Flynn Downs out purely on the back of 9 yellow cards, Tonda said. I mean, obviously, of course, he probably wants to give Cam Bragg some minutes and stuff as well. But had that all gone tits up, we would have looked at that and gone, okay, well, that's a bit too clever. But it didn't.
Yeah.
And, now he's got to get through just the West Brom game, and then we have him for Coventry. If he gets booked in the Coventry game, I think he'll still get a 2-game ban. That'll be the 37th game of the season. So still 2 more games to get through for him and James Bree. But we're getting there. And if we can manage to not lose him for 2 games, that'd be good, because we thought that it was guaranteed.
But you guys were calling for him not to play on Saturday. So from that point of view, that worked okay.
Good that he's listening, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. Or good that he's listening now and not 10 weeks ago.
Or worrying if he's taking advice from us.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he is.
There is that. Unless any of you are prepared to present a spreadsheet to him, you're probably not.
No.
You're not going to get. You're not going to get a hearing. You mentioned, and a few people. I'm looking this way at the chat. You mentioned Cam Bragg, and a few people have picked up that he actually ended up having a pretty strong game. Any comments on that?
Yeah, he was dominant. I thought he was probably. I mean, as I said, nobody really stood out and sort of good or bad, but he was probably the one that kind of poked his head slightly above the parapet in the midfield. He was, I mean, he kind of had the run of things. Anything that Sheffield Wednesday did had to go down the flanks. Nothing went through the middle at all, I don't think. So that's credit to him and Shay Charles. Charles seemed to be playing in a slightly more advanced role. It wasn't really kind of a double pivot. It was kind of almost a straight line between Bragg kind of holding the fort, Charles in a sort of 8 position and Azaz in front. But very fluid in it, and it I mean more than enough quality to flummox the Sheffield Wednesday central midfield, that's for sure.
100% pass accuracy, by the way, for Cam Bragg. 100% pass accuracy. Very good.
Wow.
I don't know what the total distance of those passes were, but it's impressive either way.
Any other standout performances?
I mean, I totally agree with the lads that it's a game of 7 out of 10s, and there's not really a standout. I mean, the only other thing that occurred to me about the game was that you're not going to go up there and win the game 6-0. You just, we did some predictions the previous week where I know I said 4-0, but then as soon as the game kicked off, I thought this is wildly optimistic because Pedersen sets up Sheffield Wednesday to not get hammered because he knows that he's up against it. It's not too dissimilar to what Simon Rusk was doing with us at the tail end of last season. You
damage
try
control, isn't it? Yeah.
It's damage control. You try and stay in the game. You haven't won for 30 games, which is crazy, isn't it? I mean, so he wants to try and give his fans something, and all he can give them is not getting hammered. So from our point of view, there's not much jeopardy on the game once we've gone ahead. And so it is difficult to maintain that throughout the second half. Of course, we could have done with not letting in a goal and giving them a sniff. But it is very, very difficult to keep piling it on if there's no real jeopardy, no real edge to the game. And if Sheffield Wednesday don't give up. And they, fair play to them, they didn't give up. But I mean, let's not kid us. This Sheffield Wednesday side, if it was in League One at the moment, it would be fighting relegation in League One. Yeah. It's that bad. So, they say there's no easy games in the Championship, and in one respect there isn't. But if there is, this is it. Sheffield Wednesday away at the current state of their team and the club as a whole is an easy game, and all you can do is go up there and win it. And it's difficult for players to stand out. I mean, if Carl Larin had stuck a couple away or Cienza had stuck a couple away, then you'd look at them. But 3 goals from set pieces, that's kind of it's not a game that will live long in the memory when this season is written up. That's for sure. Interesting.
Somebody in the comments has picked up that Tonda said in the press conference, "Not an easy place to get a result," and he managed to say that.
The results this season was just otherwise. But I mean, at the end of the day, pretty much every team apart from Coventry has had to work hard for a win here. And we said this on Thursday, didn't we? That they don't tend to get smashed at home. I mean, I think on the balance of chances, we probably should have done yesterday, but the results have generally been by one or two goals. So yeah, it's one of those where you take your win, you take your relative comfort and get out of there, I think.
Yeah. And of course, we've mentioned it before, but we should mention it again. Who was the last team that Sheffield Wednesday beat?
Yep.
Oh,
Take a while. Yes.
Do you see their game yesterday? That was extraordinary. They absolutely battered Hull. Hull had 2 shots and won 1-0. And the goals are cracker as well. Proper defensive howler. The sort that we were making first half of last season.
It's one of those though, Glenn, where where at half time on Wednesday, I think it was, or Tuesday against QPR, the Portsmouth result against Wrexham went up and everyone cheered that Wrexham had won. And I get it, but I sort of thought, well, we actually need them to chop up a few points. But
it's just a reflex. It's a reflex.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. I'm still very much in the mode of not worrying about what other teams do. I mean, if we keep winning and they keep winning and we end up where we are now, then you just got to think, okay, fair enough. But yeah,
I think it's only natural to look there, isn't it? It's only natural to want to see what's going on. I think
it is. I don't know how anybody could go through the season and really get to this late stage and not now be looking at the points and worrying about what other. I mean, if you're doing that, Glenn, and you mean it, you really are. Then hats off to you. But I haven't got that ability to do that. I'm afraid. I was pouring through every result and working out where we'd be and where we'd go. And hallelujah for the live table, which of course is still a relatively.
I look at Saints winning, Pompey losing. And that's more or less it.
That's your weekend done, right?
Yeah.
That's a happy weekend. Just a couple of things I want to touch on. I thought our distribution from our goalkeeper was a lot better, or has probably got a lot better over the last couple of weeks. There was a lot of criticism when he first came in. A lot of balls were slightly going out for throw-ins, but I thought he started a couple of decent attacks for us. Anybody else notice that?
Yeah, well, it's something that we have spoken about. I think you mentioned the first few weeks. I guess you just can now put it down to rustiness and nerves, I guess, and looking to make an impression. He's decent, isn't he? He's decent with his feet. It wasn't something that I particularly noticed yesterday per se, but I'm sure that I've missed a couple of bits from my head down the laptop. But I feel fairly safe with him in goal, and I think this is a good move.
I'm kind of less. I'm not quite so warm on him, just in terms of if you take that Charlton goal last week, where it's come through bodies, but he's got a good hand on it and still hasn't kept it out. I think if that is Gavin Bazunu who does exactly the same thing, he's getting pelters. And I think you've kind of got to treat everybody equally. And I don't. I kind of think there is a little bit of. I think the difference with Peretz is obviously he's a lot more senior. He's got, by the sounds of it, he's got plenty of gravitas in the dressing room, and as a result, and he's quite loud. And you can kind of see that he's visibly sort of shouting at everybody in front of him all the time, which I think is probably a key difference. I think because Bazunu seems like he's relatively mild-mannered, relatively quiet. Just kind of tries to just play his game. Whereas Peretz, I think, being that loud sort of vocal presence behind the defence, I think does give that sort of subconscious safety and security for the defenders in front of him. And I think that's probably the difference more than necessarily him being any better of a goalkeeper. Because frankly, I think in terms of the basic attributes of being able to save stuff, take crosses, that sort of thing, I don't necessarily see he's that much of an upgrade, if at all. But he fits with this defense a lot better, just a personality fit, I think.
Yeah, it's a leadership thing, isn't it? As well, it's a leadership thing. We've talked to with blue in the face about the fact that we don't have many leaders in the team, and if the more vocal players you've got, the better. We talked about Jack Stevens' role and the fact that he's come back into the team and formation change and whatnot, and suddenly we're playing better. But a big part of it is down to the goalkeeper and his communication. He's obviously a very confident guy. It's probably misplaced at times, but he's happy to. You see him getting involved in things sort of like 40 yards out when the game's going on and things like that. And he just seems a lot more sure to me about his game and where he's supposed to be and where other people are supposed to be. But in the quiet bits in the games, you can hear him talking to the defenders all the time, and yeah, that's the sort of thing that I just don't think goes on, even with well, certainly with Gavin Bazzuno. I don't think it went on with Alex McCarthy either that much, even though he's much more experienced. So I certainly do see the positives with him. Yeah, he's not perfect. If he was perfect, he wouldn't be playing for us. But I see enough in him to and I see an improvement in his game as he plays as well, as he plays more games. Because, like you say, he hadn't played for a year and a half. He'd been at Bayern and barely played. So I think there's more to come from him as well.
It was particularly around the distribution. I thought yesterday and in some other couple of games, he's looked for that early break that we're all kind of hoping he looks for, and that hasn't always been the
that
case.
long throw he's got is pretty useful, isn't it? There was one yesterday, obviously not quite as successful as the one that he sent through to Cienza. What was that? Charlton? Was that Charlton game? I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's obviously a big asset to have if you're able to get a run. I mean, you can imagine that teams now that they'll have tape and seen him do it twice, there'll be an instruction to basically stand on him when he gets the ball, make sure he can't release it. But yeah, that's the analytical negative way that the game is played these days, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, Glenn, you might not be able to answer this question because you don't know where we are in the league table because you haven't looked. But
I know where we are.
But 9 unbeaten, and climbing the table. Should now the conversation shift from what would we describe maybe playoff hope to maybe is there an expectation now around the fan base, and is that right?
Probably, and yeah, they should. The expectation from the start of the season was that we'd make the playoffs. It's just that we were so bloody awful at the start of the season that at one stage we were looking over our shoulders, weren't we?
Sure.
And looking for 3 teams worse than us. So we got ourselves in a hole. We sat wheel still. We had the bounce when Tonda came in initially, and then it all went wrong again. And this run since we changed formation, got a new goalkeeper, started playing properly. I mean, we've done what we set out to do. I mean, if you watch any of the podcasts that are more focused on the championship as a whole, as opposed to one particular club, they always, it's boring, but they always point out, that we are a team with parachute payments. We have spent a lot of money relative to other clubs. So with that comes the expectation from everyone else, never mind within our dressing room, that we should be higher up the league. I mean, if we'd have been playing, I'll stand by what I say virtually every week. If we'd have been playing properly and using the players in the right positions since the end of the transfer window, we'd be comfortably in the playoffs by now. But there was a horrible mismanagement of things earlier on in the season where just, I don't know. Got to stop thinking about it really because it's gone, it's done.
Yeah, it's history, right?
These sort of runs is what we should be having with the squad of players that we've got now, and it will hopefully take us into the playoffs, and we'll arrive there as the team in form with a decent shout of. And obviously, it's a bit of a lottery because anything can happen in a 2-legged or a one-off game. Someone gets a red card or something. So it's always a bit of a lottery, but we should at least be buying ourselves a ticket by the end of the season and be in that top 6.
Well, Steve, have you gone from sort of hope now to expectation? Do you think now if we don't get into the playoffs, we'll have underperformed given the run of form, obviously recently, and then when Tonda first started?
I mean, just the resources that we've had available to us all season. If we're not in the playoffs, that's a massive underperformance. The fact that we're not in contention for the top 2 is a massive underperformance.
Yeah,
this squad should be winning the league, or at least competing to do so. And I mean, frankly, since week 2, we've not been in the conversation. And yeah, that's disappointing, but that is the brutal reality of it, unfortunately. I mean, we might. The whole thing may be completely rectified at some point in the next 2 months. We'll see. I mean, we're on a good run at the moment. We're playing well enough We're not necessarily dominating every game, but we're playing well enough to win enough games. And we're kind of finally showing that there is kind of a little bit of cohesion there, and that bodes well for the sort of slightly tougher run of games that's about to land at our doorstep.
Just before we move on to the Fulham preview, I know Steve, you were there in the away end. What was the atmosphere like? Picking up on a couple of comments, a few comments in the comments chat here, that it was all a bit sort of quiet, and they made a lot more noise than we did, and so on and so forth. But you were describing it earlier as being okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably agree with those sentiments. That I think generally when you go away now, there is an expectation that most home crowds are a little bit quiet for the most part, and it's noticeable when you go to away grounds and there is some sort of continued atmosphere from the home fans. And as I said, from about 15-20 minutes in, that section over to our left were non-stop noise, and yeah, credit to them for that. The away end atmosphere was a bit sporadic. I think part of the problem is that there was obviously such an expectation that we're just going to win this game easily. There was no real jeopardy in the game for most of it. We got into the lead very early on, and as soon as we went 1-0 up, I think there would have been a lot of people all around the ground, even in the home end, who would have said, well, that's that. That's game over. Saints are going to win this comfortably, and it's just a case of by what margin kind of depends on whether they can be asked really to kind of go and score more goals. And I think that does kind of bring sort of a natural sort of flatness to the atmosphere. There's no jeopardy in the game, so there doesn't seem to be the need to encourage the players. There doesn't seem to be any need to kind of force the team on to kind of try and get a winner because we're already winning. It feels comfortable, and that's just the way it is. It did feel like I mean, Glenn said a few minutes back that their team would probably be fighting relegation in League One if they were in that division with this set of players this season. And it did feel like one of those early round cup games against League One or League Two opposition, where it's a banana skin, but as long as you go up there, go into that game and you're professional and you do the basics and you get the job done, you'll come out of there with the win comfortably, and there's not really a huge amount of jeopardy. So it wasn't like when the goals went in, there were limbs flying everywhere in that away end. It did feel a lot more polite rather than exuberant, I'd say. Yeah.
I wonder what we just talked briefly, say before we move on to the Fulham game. A few people have made the comment that this latest run of good form, 9 games unbeaten, coincided with the assistant manager Ben Garner joining the club. I think it's fair to say, as a podcast trio, you were fairly underwhelmed, as were others, at his announcement when he joined. But Alfie, I wonder whether you're seeing, from what you see slightly closer to the club than the rest of us, whether Ben is making any impact, and is any of it sort of now playing off on the field?
Well, to be honest, I've not observed any training sessions or anything like that in the last month, so I can't comment on that. But it is a team game. Tonda Eckert gets obviously a lot of praise for the fact that we're one of the highest performing teams, in the last since he took over. You've got all sorts of things going on, right? So you've got Edouard Schmidt, who came in as a new analyst in January as well. That was similar time to Ben Garner. Albert Jones is sort of taken over on set pieces, as far as I'm aware, who worked with him in the under-21s. So I think there's a lot of different factors coming into it. I mean, maybe someone go back and clip it. I don't think I was particularly underwhelmed by Ben Garner. I thought that actually for an assistant manager appointment, someone who's done hundreds of games as a manager in the Football League was all right, was not too bad. He might be doing a lot of the coaching. Who knows? I can't comment on that. But yeah, it seems like they're working well. Tonda Eckert's happy. Set pieces are going well. Right now, we've not got too much to complain about. But again, I repeat the fact that the real test is still to come, and that's where we'll see sort of the mentality and quality.
Okay, we'll move on to the Fulham preview shortly. I just want to take a moment to remind you that TSP is supporting this year's Benali on tour, and Martin, Alfie, and the producer Alex are taking on the 10 Lake District summits across the final weekend of the season to raise money for the Saints Foundation, doing a joint fundraiser with the Daily Echo. And we'll be sharing sort of fundraising links in the description for the podcast and on YouTube. If you'd like to sponsor the guys, any money you can donate is greatly appreciated. Aiming to raise £2,250. I think we're well over £700-800 now, about 30% through the goal. So do look out for those links. It's obviously, as we know, it's a great cause and very close to all of our hearts who support the club. Just Alfie on that, I've been walking my dog around St. Catherine's Hill quite a few times in the last week or so. Can't say I've seen you there.
No, I'll give you a little update on that. Training's gone well today. I had 4 iced wing donuts earlier today, so we're on pace to make it. No, to be fair, I've been doing it in the local Pure gym, just on the treadmill, really doing incline walks. But it's going to be tough, I know it is, and that time is very quickly sneaking up on us. It's less than 2 months now, isn't it? So yeah, we'll see how we get on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I say, it's a very worthy cause. It's close to our hearts at the club. So if there's anything you can spare, then please contribute and just make that challenge that little bit easier for the guys when they know that they're raising as much money as they possibly can for a great cause. Just before we wrap up on Sheffield Wednesday, I think that's the 3rd time I've said we're going to wrap up. We will now. The Prediction League stats, I've just got these in front of me now. So we had 83 entries and only 3 people didn't go for a Saints win. So 80 people did, and 11 got the 3-1 score. So can you remember, guys, what you got? Steve, I'll tell you. You went
5-0.
5-0. Glenn was 4-0.
I was 3, wasn't I?
Was 3-1. And Martin, in his absence, 3-1. He got, you were 3-0, Alfie, and Martin was 3-1. So if you want to play along with that for the next game, all you need is your Patreon login. You'll see the leaderboard there. Visit our website at totalsaints.co.uk. Right, next up on Sunday is Premier League Fulham in the Cup, and that's a 12 o'clock kickoff. We can moan about that in a minute, don't worry. And I think we last played them in the 3rd round back in 2018. I think James Ward-Prowse scored that. We won that game. So chance for... is this a chance, I guess, guys, over to you? Is this a chance for some of the players that aren't making the starting lineup to start the game at Fulham? Or, is this an opportunity to get more wins on the board and actually sort of power us through in what should be a very emotional 50th anniversary year of the FA Cup? And if it's any year that we should go and try and win it, it should be this year. Steve?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, we're not going to win it. You're gonna come up against a proper big boy at some point who will put their reserve team out, and that team will be worth about £400 million more than ours. So unfortunately, that is just the reality of modern football. But it's not 50 years ago where a 2nd division side can legitimately have aims of winning the thing. Unfortunately.
So just to jump in there, Steve, it's a bit of a myth that it was ever any different, because Saints won it in 1976. There's only been one 2nd-tier club that's won it since then, and that was 45 years ago. It was West Ham. They won it in 1980. There's been no 2nd-tier club that's won it since then. So it's not exactly a new phenomenon, but that 2nd division clubs don't win it. But it's certainly even more impossible to do it now than it has been at any point. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. But I mean, Fulham are the team that we kind of identified that game, didn't we, last year, the home game against Fulham that we lost late on, as kind of the game which showed the difference between a stable Premier League side and a newly promoted one, in that Fulham were able to make 5 substitutions from half-time through to the end of that second half. And all 5 of those players were either of similar quality or better than the ones that they replaced. Whereas for us, we were very competitive for an hour, and then as soon as we start making substitutions, the starting 11 was noticeably weaker. And that was ultimately the game that, for me, that kind of proved it. When a side as kind of moderate as Fulham are, they're a relatively small club in the Premier League pond, but they've competed as a mid-table side. They've been pretty comfortable for basically since they got back up there. And yeah, for a side like that to be so sort of dominant in terms of the resources available to them does kind of show the difference between levels now. But yeah, you kind of wonder how seriously they'll take it. I mean, you do still see these middling Premier League sides. They kind of have a similar attitude to the cup competitions to us lower teams lower down the pyramids. It's like, well, we're not going to win it, so what's the point in making an effort for it? And I wouldn't be surprised if Fulham make 8-9 changes for that game Sunday. So all of a sudden, it does then give you an opportunity if you're willing to take it seriously. I'm not sure we will. I mean, there's a bit of money available. We'll get, I think, about 150 grand for the TV coverage. We get a split of the gate, and I think it's about 350 grand prize money for going through. So there is some money available, plus then what you get for whoever you draw in the quarterfinal. Let's be honest, when we inevitably draw Liverpool away. So I mean, there is kind of something to go for there from the club's perspective, but the big prize for us is promotion, and we'll have a game on the Wednesday night at West Brom where, frankly, is unlikely to be more looking towards that. So I would expect. I don't think it will necessarily be a youth team that similar to the one that ended the Leicester win, but I think it will be rotated relatively significantly, like probably 4, maybe 5 changes from the side that started yesterday. But that means that someone like Flynn Downs can come in and start, because the bookings totting up process doesn't apply for the FA Cup. That the yellow cards are only for specific competitions. So him, Harwood-Bellis, Bree, no issue at all if any of those 3 play that game from a suspension perspective. So I would expect all 3 of those to start. I think realistically you have to go with Peretz in goal. I don't think you can play George Long against Premier League opposition. So all of a sudden half that team picks itself, really. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you kind of go into it. It's like, well, it's a free hit, isn't it, lads? Other than the fact you got about 5,000 away fans turning up to support you, so you kind of got to put something on for them. I think in terms of team selection, I don't think you can go too gung ho in terms of the rotation.
I think it'll end up looking pretty strong, Steve. Maybe we'll be wrong, but if I was to do a predicted team off the top of my head right now, I would say the exact same you just said: Peretz, Bree, Harwood-Bellis, Stevens, Manning, Charles, Downs, probably Tom Fellows, Finizaz, Cienza, Carl Larin. And that's basically full strength, obviously. So I don't know, maybe it'd be wrong. Maybe there will be a couple of changes in there, but I think they'll probably go fullish strength. They won't risk anybody. I don't think Ross Stewart will play. He'll be on the bench at most. But then I guess if it starts to go a certain way, you just bring players off. The ones who are sort of near their maximum, you take them off earlier if you're 2-0 down, 3-0 down. But you make a good point regarding the squads. Even if they do make 8 changes, Steve, they're still going to have players like Tom Kearney, Muniz, Josh King, their young lad, Harrison Reed, Timothy Castagna, Anthony Robinson. All of these players were on the bench for Fulham today. So they're going to bring Premier League level players in. It's going to be a big test.
But also, I think we're proving as well with some of the changes that we've been making with some of the players. Like, for example, take Bragg on Saturday. We've got now, having had a relatively successful January, we got rid of some people we didn't want around, and we brought some new players in. We've actually got, I think, quite a bit of strength in depth now. I think it was one of you, or more than one of you, said, we've almost got to a point now as a squad where we've got 2 strong players for each position. So actually, even if we do rest some players, is that not still an opportunity to put out a fairly strong second string?
I would say it's nearly all positions. I mean, I think you can probably leave out, if you wanted to rest Jack Stevens for the Fulham game, you can bring in Nathan Wood and it's not that much of a downgrade. If you leave Cienza out, then there's a downgrade.
Yeah.
And we've got the question mark over the striker as well. So if we assume that Ross Stewart is not going to play, then if you put Cameron Archer in the team, then it's a downgrade, isn't it? So yeah, it all depends on how they want to manage the resources and how seriously they want to take it. I mean, I think, bearing in mind it is the 50th anniversary, I think I said last week, I think we've done the FA Cup justice this year. We've won a couple of, we've got through a couple of rounds. It's not like we turned up, put kids out and got knocked out in the third round by a League Two club or whatever. We've done okay. If we get knocked out by a Premier League club, then that's fair enough. But I do see this as an opportunity to have a go. It will be very interesting to see how Fulham approach it, because they're not going to qualify for Europe, not the big competitions anyway. They might get the Conference League, and they're not going to go down. So they're kind of in a similar situation to Crystal Palace last year, who went on and won it, of course, and probably had the greatest day in their history, and have probably been regretting it ever since, because they've just been pillaged. But
miserable this season for them, isn't it?
Such is life. But you ask any Crystal Palace fan whether they'd swap it, and that day at Wembley was everything to them. So Fulham, they've obviously not won anything, I don't think, since the 50s. So there's a whole probably 3 generations of fans who've never seen them win a trophy. So maybe they'll be seeing it as a chance to do what Crystal Palace did last year, and he'll go quite strong. But
and is there the Marco Silva factor in that also he's leaving the club at the end of the year, and if he gets them to the final, he gets a better pick of jobs potentially.
Yeah. And the other thing
he said he's leaving.
Well, no, but he's out of contract and he has been for 2 years, and it's a case of surely he's not leaving. Yeah. Surely he is not staying. Sorry.
Yeah, he's always given me the impression of being an ungracious dickhead, and I remember him last year. Last year we went up there and got a 0-0 draw, didn't we? We basically, Simon Rusk was the caretaker manager, and it
was the home game. It was that home game where they won, where he was a prick afterwards, wasn't it?
I thought he was in the 0-0 as well. Yeah,
we'd taken the lead and then basically just tried to defend for the remaining hour or so, and he didn't like it. He took offence to it. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. But they have got, as Alfie said, they've got a very good squad of players. You look at the players that are on the bench, and the other thing we identified last time was how they've built their squad by signing experienced players from other Premier League clubs. So off the top of my head, you've got sort of Leno from Arsenal, Iwobi from Everton, Smith Rowe from Arsenal. Yeah. Wilson from Bournemouth. These are all sort of proven players, so they knew what they were getting. Whereas last year we were signing, rubbish basically, weren't we? So there was a huge difference last year. So hopefully there won't be as big a difference this year with us playing well at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the respective managers prioritise this particular game. But
I've got a direct quote from Tonda. I did ask him, will you attack the Fulham game and look to reach the FA Cup last day? It was a very short and sweet answer. The exact words were, I think it's a very important year in the FA Cup for this football club, so we will make sure we play to win the game. That could mean anything.
It would be nice to see some emotion in football still around the 50th anniversary. They bothered to make the world's second most expensive shirt replica, and so let's do it on the pitch. Interesting, a lot of I keep looking away at the comments here, but a lot of comments, people picking up on great opportunity to play Premier League opposition, to see how we do up against them.
We played Premier League opposition all last year, and I didn't like it.
One much fun in that, was there?
It would be good. I mean, how much? I always think, how much do they fancy it? Really?
Yeah. Well, they're not.
So,
and they're not. The one thing with
Fulham
is Downs and Oriol Romeo.
Well, if you remember back to last season, obviously Palace went on and won it, but in the either fifth round or the quarter final, Fulham were at home to Palace, and they basically put a half-assed effort in, and Palace won the game really easily, like 3-0. Fulham fans were furious with that, because that was an opportunity for them. The draw opened up a little bit, so a team could go on on a run and get to the final. Palace were good enough to go to then subsequently go on and win the whole thing. So for a side that's sort of permanently mid-table, they're not going up. Well, obviously nowhere to go up to, not getting relegated. What else is there for you to play for? Try and win something, for goodness sake. But
totally
they didn't do it last year, so not wholly convinced they'll be that bothered this time around either.
Should we moan about the kickoff time for a bit?
No.
Yep, why not? But I mean, TV is TV. We can complain till we're blue in the face on this, but ultimately, we've as football clubs, as supporters, we've all danced with the devil, and this is the result. You get screwed around. You get stupid kickoff times. TV companies dictate.
Voice of reason here, right? What is wrong with the 12 o'clock kickoff time, given that it's a 70-mile journey up the motorway? And you look at Bournemouth versus Sunderland, or Sunderland.
Yeah, but they're not taking that. They're not taking that into account when they put the kickoff time. It's just it
the
happens
game was
to
changed for TV.
a local game. They're not doing anything remotely to. Southampton have only got 70 miles to go. We'll give them a 12 o'clock kickoff. That's just. I mean, I will say for them, I prefer a 12 o'clock kickoff to a 8 o'clock in the evening kickoff.
Yeah, or a 5:30 or something like that. So is it just about the atmosphere? Because
for me, it's about the atmosphere. I think all these lunchtime games, the atmosphere is awful. Basically, people obviously haven't had time to wake up, haven't had time to have a few beers, and I just think that the atmosphere suffers. You could look at Stoke, for example. To be fair, the away end at Stoke was really, really good, but the home support was non-existent. For a team who had been on a relatively decent run and were up there competing. So I just think that it's it is inconvenient. People want to enjoy the full day. Having to get on a train at 9 o'clock, right? It's not that early, but it just limits what you can do. So I think and also there's not a single 3 p.m. game on Saturday for the FA Cup, which is just bonkers.
Well, all 8 ties are televised. Yeah. So obviously no 3 p.m. because the blackout law still exists. So yeah, that kind of makes. I mean. It makes sense. Whether it's acceptable or not, I don't know. But football doesn't have many traditions left. So yeah, why not just bin the rest?
Another one, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, the FA Cup is steeped in tradition.
Well, that's it. It's not, is it?
Irrespective of what time you kick off a game. But anyway,
prawn sandwiches galore on Sunday lunchtime.
Well. Not for everybody, I'm sure, by any means. You're the only one out of all of us probably likely to be tucking into prawn sandwiches
that's very true.
At the game. So
especially at Fulham.
Yeah, exactly. So I would pipe down if I were you.
Part of your training for Benali on tour, is that?
Yeah. More ring donuts, please. Yeah. Right. Any other business? We should do some score predictions for the FA Cup, even though, of course, we can't decide between us what team we're going to be putting out. So let's do that, shall we? First, let's do some score predictions for the lunchtime kickoff of the.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Because the rules change every year. There is no replay. It's straight to penalties.
No, extra time penalties.
Yeah,
extra time,
then penalties. Yeah, so there's no replay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go first then. 1-1
prediction.
No, not really. I'm making it up as I go along, as you know. I'll go for a 1-1 draw, and it going to penalties, and us winning. Big.
Wow.
Well, that won't happen, but
no. Steve.
Feels like if at the moment if our attackers aren't scoring, then problem. But let's be honest. Fulham are 20 times the side that Sheffield Wednesday are, and you would expect that Premier League sides should still be able to deal with us. But who knows? I think we'll run them close, but probably their deeper squad will come out on top. 2-1.
2-1 Fulham. Alfie.
Yeah, I think the fact that Fulham play midweek against West Ham in the Premier League as well will mean there probably is more rotation.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, maybe slightly more rotation than usual. But I still just think that they're going to have a lot of quality in that squad. They'll be at home. I think if Carl Larin plays up front and you've got maybe Tom Fellows on the right, Azaz and Senza do sort of maybe 50, 55, 60 minutes each, I think a 2-0 win for Fulham. And I think that won't be disgraceful and that'll be fine.
Well, I'm going to call it differently. I'm going to say that actually the early kickoff works for us because we'll have been travelling on the trains. Few people have had some beers on the way up. We'll have a better atmosphere at our end with 4,500 fans rather than they will, as they'll all just rock up and there won't be much of an atmosphere at home. So I think we're going to nick it 1-0.
Very good.
Live in hope.
Sorry, just one more thing, Neil.
I was going to say any other business, so go for it.
Yeah, Steve will know this. Did they release that extra block of tickets in the end?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, there was talking about it.
I'm not quite sure how the negotiations went because I'm sure it must just be easier for Fulham just to say, here, have the whole end, do what you like, rather than having to segregate, because the segregation is only in the stand. Like in the concourse, it's still like you go through the same turnstiles. It's really weird at Craven Cottage at that end. So it must just be easier for them to just let us have the full end. They've not put any tickets on sale in that stand on sale to home fans. So I do wonder whether it's just been one of those things where gradually, block by block, once we sell them, they'll then allow us to open up the next one along, and maybe we will have the whole end. But that whole end holds about 6,000. I think it's massive.
Yeah.
I've not seen the sold out notices going up yet. So
no, I mean it's things because I've already got my ticket. I can't see the seat plan anymore. It won't let me through because I've already got a ticket against my customer number.
Yeah.
Lots of people are now online.
Yes, you can't
waiting for it to come.
You can't get into the seating plan if you've already bought a ticket. So I've got no idea sort of how many are left or what block we've got up to. But certainly when I got mine, like the middle block behind the goal was more or less already gone. So we were already kind of gradually getting across that stand. So yeah, I would expect us to fill that end if Fulham do eventually let us have all of them. Easy one for people to get to, isn't it?
Yep, it is. It's an hour up the road, and I think it'll be an interesting game. And I'll be actually looking forward to going to the ground since they've done the work and opened up that new stand as well. It'll be quite interesting to see.
Insanely expensive new stand, £2,000 season tickets.
Doesn't have a swimming pool in it. A football stand with
yes.
swimming pool.
Yes,
incredible. Yeah,
very handy. We should have one at St Mary's.
Perfect for this weather.
Yeah. Any other business, gentlemen? Anything else you'd like to bring out on the podcast for this evening before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
No, I haven't got anything written down.
Edit that bit out then. No, any other business. That just leaves us to wrap up then. So just with some housekeeping, really. And you can follow the Total Saints podcast, of course, on all social media platforms. It's at Total Saints Pod. And please do check out our TSP merch store. That's at shop.totalsaints.co.uk. As we mentioned earlier, also on Patreon, where you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. Just visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. Each of the tiers comes with its own perks, including weekly shout-outs for those patrons in our Francis Benali and Mick Shannon tiers. So on to that. Thank you to Dave Melton, to Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Heron, Nicky Nicholson, Pete Montebellano, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, Red 76 Tax, Michael Blackmer, David Mansell, Nick Gardner, John Collison, Voice FM, Andrew Steele, and James Ravenscroft in the Francis Benali tier. And also to Nick Reed, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Higston, Phil Cook, Jonathan Cooper, Colt Baker, Anthony Thompson, Matt Hall, Mike Etheridge, Philip Horstrup, Mark Littlewood, James Bobin, John Bevan, Frank Thorpe, John Peacock, and Andy Pickles in our Mick Shannon tier. Did all that from memory. A huge thanks to the Paul Castle Associates and to Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. My thanks, of course, to Steve, to Glenn, and to Alfie. And the good news is I found something as a benefit of a 12 o'clock kickoff. The guys are going to be back doing a podcast on Sunday evening. So there you are. That's why it's at midday. We'll see you then. Thank you.